I thought we were live and we weren't.
Oh, well, let's pray again.
Well, let's wait till it goes live and then we'll make sure. So, well, sorry about that, folks. I actually thought we were live 2 minutes ago, but apparently we weren't. So, but we're live now. And how you doing, Lisa?
I'm doing good.
She is ready finally. We were kind of bustling around here getting the last little adjustments made and everything, but we are here, and praise the Lord for that. And we're so glad that you guys are joining in too. We got a great podcast tonight. It's called Three Unclean Spirits, and of course
It's the frogs.
It's the frogs, yeah. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be going off of Revelation 16, 13, and 14, and some other verses too. So get your Bibles ready. And we're going to be talking about this subject and getting deep into it. And we're going to be welcoming your guys' comments too. And as always, we are not the end all say all. So if you guys find something that we're saying that is not quite lined up with the Bible, please immediately say something and show where we are incorrect, and we will gladly correct. So because the older I get, the less I trust myself, quite frankly. And so, but this is a corporate Bible study. Just look at it like we're in your living room and we're all kind of just engaging in this Bible study, because that's kind of how it feels from our end. So with that, let's pray and let's start this very important study. So Heavenly Father, we just ask that your Spirit will be with us today, this evening, as we open your word, that you will ready our minds and our hearts to receive truth, Lord, and that you will speak that only your words of holiness will be spoken this evening. In your name we pray, amen. So, all right, folks. So, looks like we are definitely live now. So, we will get right into this study, and let's go ahead and turn to Revelation 16, and we're just going to start talking about this. So, Lisa, you just got through saying when we thought we were live that you had watched this, like, what was it, a couple nights ago?
Yeah.
Something on this same subject?
Yes.
And was Doug Batchelor teaching it?
Yeah.
So, but as usually, we always like to throw a little twist in there. And so you guys will have to stay tuned to see what that twist is all about.
So my phone is dead, so you need to give me some time to look it up. I got my Bible right here. So Revelation 16?
Yeah, Revelation 16.
Okay.
And I think this is a wonderful study because, there's, we often hear the word heresy, right? And heresy is often spoke of as something that's, evil speaking of in the church, right? Falsehoods or false doctrines or things that are taught that aren't true according to the Bible. And there are many falsehoods out there. There's many heresies out there that are being taught nowadays in the churches. But what's the greatest heresy of them all? And, this has been something that's been kind of, mulling around in my head, greatest heresy of them all. I mean, what would you guys think that the greatest heresy of all is? What would you guys think that, let me see here. Yeah. So yeah. So that's the question for tonight, and that's the one we're going to be attempting to answer as we go through these Bible verses, and we're starting to talk about this stuff. And are you there yet, Lisa?
I'm going to look it up. Heresy.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start reading these verses. We'll probably read them several times before the night is up, and also, like I said, some other Bible verses as well. But in verse 13, it says, "And I saw three unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet." Okay, and so with that, this gives us a picture. What do I got? A commercial running on this thing? This is not good. Oh. That was going to be pretty background stuff, but it's showing a commercial of a video game. So immediately we're going to turn that off. I like those commercial-free, kind of like ASMR type things, where they get the soft music and then little pictures and stuff. Kind of cool, kind of fun.
Well, I looked up heresies.
Okay, let's have it.
Belief or opinion contrary to the Orthodox religion, especially Christian doctrine. So it's an opinion profoundly at odds with what is generally accepted.
Okay, well, that's interesting, and that is actually a little bit better definition than I would have given it, because that almost sounds like a heresy could be anything that orthodoxy esteems correct. In other words, they could make up a truth, right? They could make up something, and if you speak against it, that could be a heresy. Is that correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I mean, according to, was that Wikipedia?
Yeah. This is just the regular dictionary.
Okay, by like an online dictionary. Gotcha. All right, cool. That's a very good definition of that. We haven't got anybody online yet, so we usually got some people joining us by now. I hope we're uploading this properly, so there's no drop or anything. Well, we'll just keep going. All right, folks. And out of the mouth of the false prophet in verse 14, for they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and to the whole world to gather them to the battle that great day of God Almighty. Okay. Now, in verse 15, it says, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. Let's talk about this garment for a little while. What do you suppose that garment might be? I mean, does anybody out there have any ideas of what it's talking about here?
Kind of like the virgins, just let us have our own clothes, kind of like that, right?
Oh, man, Lisa, that is perfect. Actually, that's a good verse to look up. That's in Ezekiel somewhere. Can you Google that real quick?
Sure.
If you just type in part of that verse.
It's the virgins, right?
No, it's not the virgins. It says, in that day, let 7 women will say, let us eat our own bread, wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away thy reproach. That's a good one, because the apparel is a form of righteousness. And if we read in other parts of the Bible, which I haven't, this is just off the cuff right now. I don't have these verses written down, but in other parts of the Bible, it talks about garments or robes, like the robe that the son placed around the prodigal, or the father placed around the prodigal son when he came home. Mm-hmm. It was the robe, and it had a representation.
So Bible Hub says, it's in Isaiah 4:1, and it says, in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach.
Was that 7:4, Isaiah 7:4?
4:1.
Oh, Isaiah 4:1?
Mm-hmm.
Write that down.
So that's kind of like this. It said, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and he see his shame.
Yeah. So a garment would be, is generally accepted as righteousness, Christ's righteousness. Yeah, the robe is placed over us. And so, and that's interesting that it would say that, right? And, the key to unlocking prophecy is right in prophecy itself. If you just keep reading, oftentimes, it's telling us to beware of something, but then Jesus himself, because this is like a red letter edition, actually speaks and says, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. So in other words, what it's saying is stay close to Jesus. Mm-hmm. That's essentially what that is saying, because Jesus is the one who offers righteousness. Yeah, that's exactly right. The chat seems to be off, Bart says.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay. Hang on, guys. I don't know what I did wrong here, so the chat seems to be off. I don't know how to do that. Let me go on here. Uh-oh. Emergency. All right, let's see if we can quickly resolve this issue. Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's weird that the chat would be off. Mm-hmm. Here, I'm going to put it on you, Lisa, while I fool around with this.
He doesn't want to be seen trying to brainstorm it.
Oh. Made for kids? Okay, I got the wrong setting here.
Oh.
Okay. Boy. That's weird. I hope that changes it. I had the setting that was for kids on. I don't know how in the world that happened. That must have just been a slip. All right, so let me see here. Let me double check this. It's not really. Restrictions. Okay, so that should do it. I don't know how long that's going to take to update, but that should hopefully do it, guys. I do apologize about that. Things do happen, seems like, quite often, more often than we like, actually. So, still no comments yet, but maybe it'll take a little while to reset that. Maybe it won't reset at all. I've never had that happen before, so that was very weird. Yeah. So, I guess if it's made for kids, it don't allow kids to comment. So let me see here. Oh, here we go. Reformation says hi.
Hi.
Hallelujah. Praise the Lord.
I felt like we were on a deserted island or something.
Yeah, me too. Okay, Watchman says, got it. Right on. Right on. Right on. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being patient with us. And looks like we've got that problem solved and averted. Praise the Lord for that.
Yes.
And that's why we got to pray before we start these things, because I'll tell you what, the devil hates it. Bart says, gives us a thumbs up. Reformation says, anyone watching needs to refresh their screen. Reformation says. So,
okay.
Yeah, try that. And status with money is the greatest heresy. Yeah.
Status with money.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of heresies out there. We're going to talk about the greatest heresy of all time. And we're going to find out what that is in this study, hopefully. Okay, so, all right, so let's get back to what we were talking about. Where am I at here? Revelation?
Well, we were 16. In Revelation 16 and number 15, verse 15.
Yeah, okay, so here we are. And he gathered them together, verse 16, unto a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon, okay? And here's something that has caused a lot of people heartburn, this word Armageddon. Now, there's some evangelicals out there that are ready to think that that this is a literal place here on earth, okay? And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air. And that's the other thing, too, about this, about these verses. This happens to happen around the time of the seventh plague, because there's the sixth plague, and then right before that, then this, and then the seventh, okay? Heaven soon says it wouldn't work until I turned the phone off and then back on again. So, wow, this is crazy. So if you guys are still having a problem with those comments, maybe restart your phones. We do apologize about that. Boy, I'll have to make sure and always look at that so that doesn't happen again. So, but we are glad everybody is here. So all of our favorite people are here. Well, we're still missing some, I suppose, but hopefully they will join us as time goes on. And so in verse 17, and the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, it is done. Now, the seventh seal, or the seventh plague, rather, seems to me like it's the second coming of Christ. That's what that seems like to me. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. This also, this is a one of those texts that we quoted last Wednesday for an individual that came on and was talking about this false Christ that, and I forget his name already because I haven't been following what he's been doing, but he was thinking that maybe this guy was Christ, was the Christ, and we said no, because when Christ comes back, there'll be a mighty earthquake. There'll be, as lightning shines from the east and is seen also unto the west, so also the coming of the Son of Man be. There was lots of, we quoted lots of different things that kind of drew that picture.
I looked up Armageddon because there's so many movies on that, and they're always like the doomsday kind of movies. But Armageddon refers to, or is prophesied as, gathering of armies for the battle during the end times, or Armageddon is a cataclysmic or devastating conflict
Okay.
towards the end of time. Yeah, so gathering of armies.
Okay. So Tim's I think just joined us. He shot me a text. Again, guys, I had the wrong settings here for my computer, and everybody here on the chat has already said that you'll have to maybe refresh your screen or even maybe even restart your phone for the chat to start working again, because I had it set for kids, and apparently if you put it on that, then nobody can put the chat, put the comments in. So I do apologize about that, Tim. So here we go.
So Armageddon refers to a literal location, ancient city of Megiddo in northern Israel.
Yeah, that's what Reformation just said here. And Reformation says Armageddon is the New Testament translation of the Old Testament Megiddo, also known as Jezreel Valley. It was a historic place for battles in ancient Israel.
Oh, okay.
Now, there's something that was taught to me years ago, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, as always. But what is literal in the Old Testament becomes spiritual in the New Testament, becomes literal in heaven. Does that make sense?
Kinda, yeah. Because
Okay.
there's a parallel between our world and heaven. Like the candlesticks and the bread, the showbread. All that stuff is in heaven too.
Yeah. Tim says, okay, chat back up now that I refreshed. Okay, fantastic. So Tim's back on.
Oh, hi, Tim.
Tim is with the chat now. Well, he's been on, but he hasn't, his chat's not showing up.
Right.
So yeah, again, if anybody's just joining us, please refresh your screens and make sure those chats are working. So, but that's correct. So it was a literal place in the Old Testament. And so battles were fought in this literal Old Testament place. And the thing of it is people have said, well, the kings are all going to gather there, because that's kind of how the Bible puts it. The kings are all going to gather there for this great and final battle. But that's not exactly what is being said here, because first of all, there's not enough room in the Valley of Megiddo for all of the armies to gather there,
Right. But won't there be everyone that has fallen, going up against Jesus after the 1,000 years in heaven, and will come down? Won't there be so-called armies or people that are going to try to overcome Jesus and his followers? I mean, right?
Yes. Now that is I think going to be a different battle.
But it will be a battle.
It will be a battle. Now, Google real quick, Lisa, unless one of our watchers can catch it before you can find it. But Google multitudes and multitudes in the Valley of Decision. Find out which verse that is. I'm going to say Isaiah or Ezekiel. I always say the same thing, and if I said Isaiah, it's going to be in Ezekiel. If I say Ezekiel, it's going to be in Isaiah. But it's somewhere in there, or maybe it's even in one of the minor prophets. I have no idea. But I do remember reading it many times. Multitudes and multitudes in the Valley of Decision. Because I think this is what the Valley of Megiddo is really all about. The Armageddon, the Battle of Armageddon is really the battle for the minds of people. And that's where the battle is taking place right now. And it's a great battle, indeed. So, while she's looking that up. So let's go back to verse 13 here. And it says, I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. And where's the power of the frog? Where's the frog's power at?
So when I looked it up, it says Joel 3:14.
I knew it. I knew I was going to be
So
wrong.
the phrase multitudes and multitudes in the Valley of Decision comes from Joel 3:14, where described a great gathering of people in a place where God will judge all nations.
What was that verse again?
Joel 3:14.
Joel 3:14. Okay.
It's with Jehoshaphat.
All right.
The valley of Joseph.
Can you look that up real quick in the Bible?
What?
Joel 3:14.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So the power of the frog is in its tongue, okay? Just interestingly enough, I mean, frogs don't have big claws. They don't have tails that can sweep people or anything like that. Their power is actually in their tongue. You can see that tongue fly out and it'll grab something.
Grab something way huge.
Yeah. We used to
make a lot. Well, yeah.
we used to fish for frogs, and we used to do it just for the fun of it. But if you take like a big rubber worm, and you don't even need a hook, and you can just tie that on the end of a piece of fishing wire or fishing string, and you can throw that out there. And Reformation already had it. I missed it. She said 3:14.
Oh.
Okay, so yep.
They're on it.
Joel 3:14. But you can throw that out there, and those frogs will gobble it up, and you can actually pull them in, and they will not let go of that worm.
No.
They'll greedily hang on to it all the way up until you get them right to you, and you can actually grab a great big bullfrog with your hands, and it will not let go of it.
So it says, multitudes and multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. The Lord also shall roar out of Zion, and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake. But the Lord will be the hope of his people, and the strength of the children of Israel.
Now look up Revelation 20, 7 through 9. That's one that Heaven Soon just gave us. And that speaks about what you were talking about. Revelation 20, verses 7 through 9.
Okay. The defeat of Satan is headlined. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosened out of the prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the seas. They went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about and the beloved city. And the fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them.
Now you notice I said Gog and Magog. There's a lot of hubbub. There's a lot of buzz about Gog and Magog nowadays. Now this was after the 1,000 years expired. And if you look at let's use Watchman's word and a lot of other people's words, because, Adventists I guess, can be accused of chronology. But if you look up the word chronology in the Bible, it doesn't accurately describe the Adventist belief. So it doesn't really lend credence to exactly how we believe. But we have been accused many times of being chronologists. But if you look that up, so Gog and Magog is mentioned in the Old Testament, and many people have thought that that's going to be the final battle. But it just got through saying there that after the 1,000 years, read it again about the Gog and Magog.
To gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sands of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp. That part? Or before? Oh, when the 1,000 years has expired. Okay. Satan shall be loosened out of his prison, which is prison is earth, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And they shall go out and deceive the nations, and they'll compass. So after 1,000 years, there'll be a battle. There'll be a battle for our soul, right?
Yeah.
Or actually, it'll be our mom and dads or loved ones trying to coax us to denounce God. But we'll be strong.
Okay. Well, Watchman gave us Daniel 7:10. A fiery stream issued and came forth before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000s times 10,000 stood before him, and judgment was set, and the books were opened. Talking about judgment.
Oh.
Yeah, there's judgment there. I forget what the context of all that is, but that's the danger of reading stuff off the cuff.
Yeah.
So Reformation said frogs denote that they will work among three great religious divisions represented by dragon, beast, and false prophet, or paganism, Catholicism, or apostate Protestantism. And I would say like the dragon would represent even Satan himself, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or it could be like Catholicism as well, because it doesn't say that final beast is a dragon, but it's a terrible beast, right?
Yeah.
And it's often depicted as a dragon with 10 horns and 7 heads.
So, Carrie, what's the most heresy? You never answered.
Well, we're getting to that, Lisa. I want it to be a little suspenseful here.
Oh.
So Watchman says a lot of people believe Satan is out deceiving the nations now. Okay.
He's working.
Yeah. Well, no, he is deceiving the nations. I mean, he has been since the beginning of time. I mean, he works in nations. Satan always. Wasn't it when Daniel was praying that Gabriel came to him and said, "I was detained by the kings of the Medes and the Persians," and so there's a little bit of insight into how all that works. Reformation says the Bible often tells about an event, then goes back and gives additional details, but sometimes it's unclear about exactly which verses denote the additional details. Patricia's with us. No, the Lord will come and take the saints to heaven. The devil and his angels will be upon this ruined earth for 1,000 years with nobody to influence. That's actually true. Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make. And so Gog and Magog is the battle after the 1,000 years. But to Patricia's point, now when the Lord comes again, right? Mm-hmm. All of the living wicked will perish at that point, at the brightness of his coming.
Yes.
The living righteous will not precede the living dead, because the living dead will be resurrected and they will be caught up first, and then all of those which remain will be caught up together with them to meet them in the clouds. Mm-hmm. And so then they will live and reign with Christ 1,000 years, where more judgment will be taking place, because it said the books will be opened, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's a period of time where those who, you see there that shouldn't be there, or you think, like, for example, when Paul was holding the garments of the people who were stoning Stephen, mm-hmm. Stephen and Paul are going to both be in heaven.
Right.
And so
it's going to be puzzling for them at first.
At first, yeah. And then the books will be opened, and God will show that, look, Paul, became faithful. And so it was during his ignorance, his times of ignorance, that he did these things.
And there's going to be the mean old man that's going to be in heaven. You're like, how did they get there?
Yeah, exactly.
How did I get here? No.
How did I get here? Exactly. God, open the books and show me.
We're going to be throwing our crowns down at his feet.
Amen.
Feeling unworthy.
Well, it will be. It will be something that we will feel very unworthy to receive. And because he will place these crowns upon us, like we've done something special, and we're like, no. And we'll lay them at his feet. And, of course, the crowns will be something that we'll keep. Now, Tim says something here. He says Gog and Magog is the final battle, but it is when we have the veil of understanding and the people that are damned. Part A is last battle. Part B is the last attempt to take the holy city. Okay? And, and that's after the 1,000 years. Right. And that's, that's after the 1,000 years of judgment. And then the final judgment, people hate that word judgment, but there's so much judgment. God really wants to be thorough about this.
Judgment, there's nothing wrong with that. When you meet people, don't you you try not to, but you look at their face, and then, and you try not to look down their body, but you'll see like their old shoes, or maybe you might even see them drive up in an old vehicle. Like we drive this old vehicle, it's full of mud. It looks like we've been mud bogging, but it's just, our road is horrible. And the ruts are every bit of 3 or 4 feet. We have to tilt our truck. You can hear it groan as we're going down the road. But people judge people. That's just the way what it is.
We're everywhere we go, we're being judged, huh?
Everywhere.
Yeah, and people are judging us now. Mm-hmm. And they're judging have you ever heard people say, you're not acting very Christian-like?
Oh, I just got told that by my son today.
Yeah, because you were correcting him for some things that he was doing.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, by you correcting him, you're not very Christian-like.
That's right.
You're judging me.
That's
Well,
what he said.
excuse me, but moms have a right to judge their sons. That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a living fact. Natural fact. That's what your dad used to say. That's a natural fact. So to coin the terminology of your father. Heaven sued, and then they pick up where they left off. Gog and Magog were attacking Jerusalem before they died at the second coming and go right back to their evil once resurrected. See, this is the key point, is that
If you're not practicing now, wanting to be a disciple of Jesus, then what makes you think you'd want to be in heaven? You know?
well, that's right. That's right. That's exactly. Patricia said, well, God's judgment is a good thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Watchman said parts of Matthew 24 also correlate with the sixth seal. And that is correct as well. Lots of good stuff here. Judgment is a good thing. The sixth seal of Revelation 6 seems to be a major chaotic event where people will be hiding. I feel the fall of America will kick off this event that is coming in this world. And there's going to be a lot of things that kind of culminate together. Now, you guys, pardon me, you guys notice how I can barely keep up with these comments. You guys are fantastic. I'm kind of speed reading them, thinking and listening to Lisa all at the same time. So I'm multitasking. That's something that most men can't do.
Wow.
I know. Isn't that cool?
What a know-it-all. Just kidding. I'm not judging.
I don't know. That sounded like a judge to me. So our Reformation said Ezekiel 38:19 make it clear that the Gog and Magog war takes place at some point prior to the second coming. Prior to the second coming. Okay. So Reformation says prior, but according to the Bible, it was after the 1,000 years had expired. Wasn't it? Read that again. What verse was that? That was 20 verses. But then Ezekiel 38:19. Now, I think that was a historical. See, 38:19 was a historical event that's already happened. And I'm not real up on all this prophecy. Now, I remember having this conversation once upon a time with Steve Wahlberg or Ivor Myers or somebody like that. And they pointed out exactly what event that was. And, of course, I should have taken notes. But I'm sure it's been talked about since. I'm just not can't recall those conversations of many years ago. Okay, you got it?
I do.
Okay, let's hear it again.
The same one?
Yeah, the same one.
It's called the defeat of Satan. And when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom it is as the sand of the sea. And they went out on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about, and then the beloved city, and the fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. And the devil and the deceived them they cast into the lake of fire, brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever.
Okay. So,
yeah.
And that's not to say that they'll be burned forever and ever.
No.
That description has been butchered over the years to say that God burns people forever and ever.
Yeah.
Little side note, but
kind of like Lot, like when he pulled them out of the city of I'm trying to think of the city.
Okay.
No, I mean, follow me. You can help me. So remember Lot and his family?
Yeah.
They came out of Sodom and Gomorrah, and then those tar balls or the sulfur balls were thrown at it, and it's not still burning.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. See, I was distracted. I guess I'm not a multitasker.
No.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, it was because Sodom and Gomorrah was given to us as examples, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but they're not burning to this day. And they were burned with eternal hellfire. And so, but Reformation continues on. Okay, so Revelation 28.
28. Okay.
Yeah. Is the war part 2 picking up right where it was left off 1,000 years before?
Oh.
Now, I know we need to do some more study on this. I mean, you need to show me a little bit more on that Reformation to convince me of that. I'm not totally unconvinced of what you're saying. I'm just not all there yet. Because my understanding, well, you just read it in Revelation 20, verse 8 there, about the after the 1,000 years. But what Reformation is saying is that's picking up, that's part 2 of the Gog and Magog. But my understanding was part 1 was a historical event. Part 2 was the event after the 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. And so that would go along with what is literal in the Old Testament is spiritual in the New Testament is literal in heaven, if that makes sense. And so people have taken it to be a literal battle, like Gog is going to be Russia or something, and China is going to be Magog or whatever, and there's going to be this big showdown at the end of time. I don't know if that's going to be I'm not so sure that, let me put it this way. I'm not convinced yet that that's what that is, because that's a popular evangelical belief. A lot of evangelicals say, well, we're not at the end yet, because they're looking for Gog and Magog to take place. And they're attributing a lot of this war in the Middle East right now to the buildup to some of this, because, China has their people that they support, and Russia is supporting their people. Mm-hmm. But are they really the big players here? That's my question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and I'll say no, and this is why I say no. Because only America is mentioned in Bible prophecy, Revelation 13 there, the lamb-like beast with the 2 horns that goes on to speak like a dragon. Now, no other nation's mentioned. So that tells me, like, okay, so there's a lot going on in this world, right? There's a lot of distractions everywhere. But the problem is that we have like the players that always had something to do with God's people are the ones that are mentioned. There's Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, and Rome mentioned in Bible prophecy, right? And then Europe, and then America. But why wasn't China mentioned in there? Like the Ming Dynasty. Why wasn't you know what I'm saying? Like the Han Dynasty, the all of these great like empires, that once were. Why weren't any of those actually mentioned? I mean, because there was literally hundreds of them on this earth, but only like literally 4 or 7 in total, right? Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, Rome, Europe. No, okay, hang on. Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, pagan Rome, Holy Rome, America, and then the 7th would be God. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so I think I got that right. So let's catch up on some of these. Reformation said the nations mentioned are actual nations we can trace. Okay, that's a good point. That's a real good point. China may have been Tarshish. Okay, cool. Tim Grady's addressing Watchmen. Just check your link. But the weapon that I think it is going to be is the guillotine, which is a description of how the saints in methods. Okay, China could be involved with Isaiah 46:11. The reason is they did not interact with the chosen. Well, I think the reason is because all the nations mentioned in the Bible were the ones that persecuted God's people. Does that make sense? I mean, in prophecy.
That's what I thought.
Now, there were other nations that were mentioned, obviously, Amalekites, Amorites, Jebusites. Now, they all had something to do with God's people, too. Mm-hmm. And then there was Pharaoh and Egypt, because it traces the lineage of basically God's remnant people, Israel, okay, even up to modern day Israel. Mm-hmm. Now, we say the word Seventh-day Adventist all the time, but we're really talking about just Israel here. That's just that's the only name that we're concerned with, really, because that's the name that God gives us. Patricia said the 7th is papal Rome again after the deadly wound is healed. Okay, all right. So that might be a correction on my part. So if we're talking Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, pagan Rome, Holy Rome. Wait a minute. Because then Europe, then America. That would be 7, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, that would be 7. Because it talks about that. It talks about how 5 are fallen, 1 yet is, another one is yet to come, or something along those lines. And that kind of gives us, where we're at in the stream of prophecy.
Oh, I see.
In the book of Revelation there. Lots of verses being given here. We don't have time to look them all up. But Jeremiah 50:42 is one that the Watchman gives us. And Watchman is a really good representative. I'm actually really glad that you are given these verses, Watchman, because it's representative of what a lot of Christians actually are believing nowadays. And I'm not saying I'm one of them, but I do appreciate that input in that part of the argument. It's too bad you weren't here in person. We could talk about it a little bit more intimately. It's a little tough on your guys' end. You guys can only text, and it makes it, not quite as engaging. But I'm trying to get them and include as many of them as I can. Watchman says America is the hindermost of the nations, Jeremiah 50:12, and also the hammer of the whole earth, Jeremiah 50:23. Okay, so he's actually thinking that maybe that refers to America. Reformation says Gog, Magog were the Scythians. Oh, okay, here we go. Now Russia. Oh, I actually heard that from somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, we just heard that, remember?
We did. We just heard that. Okay, Gomer equals Ukraine. Targama. Where you, man, I think Reformation's a she. I hope I'm not wrong about that, but she has got a ton of information.
Wow.
Ton of information here, like gold. Russia, Gomer equals Ukraine, Targama equals Turkey, Persia equals Iran, Meshtek equals Georgia, which I guess Georgia's in Russia, Tubal, Armenia, etc. Okay. All right. Yeah, Persia is Iran. Yeah, I guess. But modern Persians, aren't they like Germans? Am I wrong about that?
Turkish, I think.
No, the Germans are Persians, I thought. Where did I get that from?
I don't know.
All right. Anyways, Heaven Soon says Zephaniah 3:8, Ezekiel 39:6 are the same. Zephaniah 3:15 and 16 and Ezekiel 39:7 are the same. Zephaniah 3 is talking about the end times. Ezekiel saw the same thing as Zephaniah, just like Daniel and John. Okay. Going to have to write those down and look those up later on. Those are good ones. Okay, so, but now as far as these false prophets go, we see what's taken place. And, somebody had mentioned papal Rome, and let's begin with that one because the false prophets now, there is a hierarchy of the false prophets. Now, we see a lot of these secret societies and stuff. Prussian. Thank you, Bart. Yeah, Prussians. Those are the Germans.
Okay.
Prussians, Germans, Persians.
Okay.
Iran. Persians are Iran. Persia is Iran. Okay.
What was that documentary that you were watching about in the Germans? They brought people to in the Middle East, and they were Orthodox Jews or something.
Oh yeah, that was yeah. Okay, so did you guys hear anything about this? About prior to World War II, Hitler was sending. Were they Orthodox?
I thought they were.
No, they were the not the Orthodox, but they were the what's that one sect of Jews that everybody blames everything on? The bankers, all those sort of things. It was that sect of the Rodney has joined us. Hi, Rodney.
Hi, Rodney.
It was that sect of Jews that they were sending to Palestine at the time. And so, and it changed the culture there.
Jewish?
Yeah. Exactly. Tim Grady said Russia and China are part of the King of the South with fundamental Muslims. Huh. Watchman says, I think America will be blessed with a covenant. with God, and it also possessed the idols of Satan. And when the people chose Satan more than God, he would act. Okay, the bear is hungry. Is that, that must be Russia. Yeah, Russian bear. But wasn't the bear representative of...
With the 3 ribs? No?
Yeah, well, that was Medo-Persia. Yeah, Book of Daniel there. Daniel chapter 7. Well, Daniel chapter 8, it identifies the rough goat and the ram.
Okay.
They collided, and so that was identified as, and the goat was Greece, and the lamb was Medo-Persia.
Okay.
And of course, Babylon had already been identified by name as well. That only left Rome to be identified, which later was in Revelation. The full identification was given there. So heaven soon. Let me see. Tim Grady. We are in the war last third. Wow. It started with Ronald Reagan and the Pope to defeat Russia. Well, okay. Yeah, let's start there. So Ronald Reagan, well, it was the Berlin Wall that came down, right? Gorbachev tear down that wall. And so that was between East and West Germany. And so, everybody else tried, but Ronald Reagan went to the papacy to be able to accomplish this thing. And so, this wound has been healing through the years. And we see the papacy getting more and more power. Now we have an American pope, which is very unusual because there's never been an American pope before. And, you see him, Pope Leo, out there addressing the nations, and he's speaking in Italian. He speaks great Italian. He speaks great Spanish too. But don't forget that he's American, and he speaks perfect English, which you don't always see the popes do. Now, Pope John Paul, I believe, spoke some English. From what I can remember, I was kind of young. But the prophecy, let's go back to what we were talking about. So when we have like all of these different like secret societies and different factions and stuff, people always try to subscribe different things. Well, like let's say the Masons, there's some people that believe the Masons are the cause of all the problems. There's some people who believe like that certain sect of Jews. Can you guys help me out here? I'm just kind of just like drawing a blank right now. The bankers, people talk about this, and but they subscribe a lot of the problems to them. And I think that's where this one particular guy was going on that documentary that we were watching, is he was talking about the Jews and how they were responsible for all the banks collapsing and a lot of what happened in Germany on them as well. Reformation says 7 forms of government that have existed in the Roman Empire are usually enumerated as follows: kingly, consular, decemvirate, dictatorial, triumvirate, imperial, and papal. Interesting. The phenomenon being discussed in the video is also important to... Okay, he's going to give us a link there. So,
the Rothschilds?
Yeah, the Rothschilds did play a part, but they were the ones that funded the whole thing, and they're the ones that sent the Jews to Palestine before Israel became a nation in 1947 or something like that, or 49.
Templars?
Well, they're one of the factions. I think there's 7 of them in total.
And Medici, Medici, M-E-D-I-C-I, Medici.
Yeah, I haven't heard of them. But there's like the Rosicrucianists, there's the Knights Templar, there's the Masons. There's 3 that I can remember off the top of my head. There's also the Illuminati. There's 4. And, there's like 7 or so, or maybe 8 in total. But they all revolve around the spokes of the wheel, the papacy being the central focus. So they are like literally could be considered the dragon, but the dragon is at the head of the papacy. In fact, if you look at the throne, you can see the serpent as being part of that throne and discussed as such. So kind of Need to go back to the Bible here, look at some more verses. Okay, so let me see here. We're back in Daniel chapter 7 here. It says, these great beasts which are four kings which shall rise up out of the earth. That was one of the descriptions of, because it says out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, right? That was the three things it mentioned. So a beast is a nation. So, so there's these, the unclean spirits. One of the unclean spirits was actually, a nation. And so, according to Daniel chapter 7 here, but the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever and ever and ever. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from the others, exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured and brake in pieces. This was kind of like a description of the papal, of Rome before the Holy Roman Empire, if I'm not mistaken. The 10 horns which were of the head, the other which came up before were 3 fell, even of that horn that had the eyes and the mouth that speak very great things. This was, a prophecy that many believed that would be the papacy itself or the Pope or actually, the individual. And I beheld the same horns, war with the saints, prevailed against them until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High in the time of the saints that possess the kingdom. Okay. So let's go back to Revelation 16 here. So it says, they are the spirits of devil working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and the whole world to gather them to the battle that great day of God Almighty. And if you think about it, this makes perfect sense because, misinformation is like everywhere. Mm-hmm. And if you look at like the, just the media nowadays, the news media and the news, mm-hmm. there's pretty much nothing but lies that you hear.
Yeah, fake news.
Yeah, it's been coined that, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. And it's made us to really mistrust just about everything that we hear, including the truth. Whenever the truth comes upon us,
It's desensitizing everybody. So when there is truth anywhere, we wouldn't know it unless we're vigilant.
Right. Right, exactly. So, So these frogs came out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. Now, who do you guys say the false prophet is? Somebody had already mentioned it before. But, maybe it's just that. Maybe it's just the false prophet. Anybody who declares false prophecy. Now, we know that there's a ton of different interpretations of prophecy out there, isn't it? And especially when you're looking at like the book of Revelation, the book of Daniel, most Christians don't even look into the book of Daniel to decipher Revelation. And so they've taken Revelation, they've kind of like tried to take all of the beasts and make these fanciful interpretations of it that really don't make any sense to me. They never have. And the book of Daniel as well is all convoluted, even though when it literally tells you who those beast powers are, mm-hmm. Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. But people will go back to the Russia and everything else. And so then they throw Gog and Magog into the mix, and then the 7 years of tribulation, and it just gets so convoluted you can't even hardly follow it. And I've tried to sit down and listen to some of these false prophets preach about prophecy. Mm-hmm. Now, God's people have been given the gift of prophecy. It tells us that, the spirit of prophecy, right?
Yeah.
In Revelation. So if God's people there is a people out there that have the spirit of prophecy, and they have what's the oracles of, I'm having a really tough time. I quit coffee the very next day last Wednesday, and I've struggled ever since. It's really hard for me to hold. It was hard for me to hold a thought when I was drinking coffee. I mean, that really actually screwed me up pretty bad, but I'm still coming off the effects of that, and I'm kind of like really struggling. So coffee's a powerful drug. I don't care what anybody says. That stuff is of the devil. It is a drug.
It is. It's dark.
And it needs to be treated as a medicine and not an everyday, pick me up. Anyways, that's probably a really people drink coffee for different reasons. I don't want to I don't want to judge people.
So I drink coffee, and it's because I don't. I mean, I should stop. I have stopped in the past several times, but I had a terrible traffic accident when I was I barely lived to 18. I was a kamikaze, didn't do wheelies and the whole 9 yards, is into rodeos, and would try to stand on the horses and ride them, and everything was full blast everywhere I went. I still, as old and fat as I am, if I get on a motorcycle, I just wind it up and take off. I'm turned into a totally different person. But anyway, so I got into an accident. And so I have a lot of stitches in my knee, which I hope I'm still working, thank God. And I'm not crippled. I don't limp or anything, but I definitely use that coffee as a crutch.
Hey, I quit. You can quit.
Oh, no, I know. I can quit.
She can. She will.
I will.
I have faith in her. So
but I drink coffee not like you did. You drink coffee to get high on it.
Well, I know. Yeah. And yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't drink coffee normal.
No.
Yeah, I drank it like I was an addict. Whatever. But it's interesting. Now, God's people have always had the oracles of truth. And I believe a lot of the reformers that came out of the Catholic Church grasped a hold of a lot of these truths. And when you look at the deciphering of Bible prophecy, they had it right. According, the way I see it, they all had it right. I mean, every one of them saw it the same way. The papacy was the beast power spoken of in Revelation 13, and it was also accurately, was it Livingston? Oh, I'm trying to think of who that was, that accurately, well, maybe it was pre-Livingston, that actually predicted the rise of America and the fall of the Holy Roman Empire to the exact date, because it gives us the time in which the Holy Roman Empire ruled, the 1260-day rule. And they knew when it started, and so then that would give you the exact date of when it should end, which was 1798. And that's a date that a lot of Adventists are very familiar with. So, the horn plucked up were the Ostrogoth, Visigoths, and the Heruli, the Reformation said. So those were the three horns we just mentioned back there in Daniel. Mm-hmm. And Danish and Scandinavian, Bart mentioned here.
I haven't really done a lot of studies deep like everyone has.
No, but you know what we're all talking about.
Oh, I do, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you have a grasp of what's going on. I mean, I haven't probably studied as deep as I should either. That's what we're kind of doing here. We're going a little bit deeper into all these things.
Reformation, I mean, that is deep. All the stuff, all those names and places, and I mean, from everybody, actually. I have not studied all that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, Bible prophecy has been, in my opinion, properly deciphered through the ages, by the reformers. And there's always been two sides to prophecy. There's been the true and the false. There's been the false prophets, which I believe, Rome has to a large degree represented. Now, it's interesting that a lot of people that came out of Rome, would later come into the truth once they started to read the Bible, because the Bible was kept from people for many years during the Dark Ages, and they weren't allowed to read the Bible. And when it was read to them, it was read to them
from the sermon and from the Catholics, right?
Yeah, but they wouldn't read it in English. They would read it in Latin. Oh. They wouldn't read it in German either.
Oh, you remember I was watching that documentary about the Amish, and they were they have their Bible in Dutch.
Uh-huh.
And then they said that they never really know what they're saying. Some of them, they don't grasp it.
Oh, that's right. That's what they said. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a hard time grasping it when they're reading it out loud in Dutch. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. But most Amish do speak Dutch fairly well.
Hmm.
So
Maybe it loses some meaning. I have no idea, but that's what they said. That huge family and a couple of them, they they're Adventists now.
oh yeah, you're talking about
Not the Weavers,
not the Weavers, but
just Amish.
just Amish. Well, there was a big group of them over in western Montana too that converted. That was what that whole can't remember that pastor's name. Cack, Donovan Cack.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the one that was working with the Amish over there, and it converted a whole church. It was a Methodist church, I believe, and the whole church is now a Seventh-day Adventist church.
Yeah.
So, and we have only heard of these things previously. I mean, there's been a few polka dotted here and there. We've never seen one like personally that converted like that. We know that like there's a lot of those churches that have kept Sunday in the past, like in India and different places in China, that have been converting over into the seventh day. So, Evan Soon says, Dragon says, "Thou shalt not surely die. Stay of the beast. Beast said, Sunday is the Sabbath, day of worship, false prophet, someone who says and speak God's words, but they don't." So, yeah, Heaven Soon's on to something here. So, the state of the...
Does it say keep the Sunday?
No. No, Sunday is the Sabbath. That's what the false doctrine is nowadays. And so we're told that the two great last day deceptions would be Sunday sacredness and immortality of the soul, right? Mm-hmm. It's clearly stated right there in Great Controversy. And we can see it. And because Sabbath is such an issue amongst the people, that the false prophets are the leaders of the evangelical faiths nowadays. I hate to say it, but they really are. And they've gone out to deceive the nations with their false doctrines. I mean, they have all of these interpretations of the Bible, and they've convoluted it so badly that when you actually read Revelation and Daniel for the first time, I mean, it takes people, something that shouldn't take this long, but because of all of the false beliefs, and I've had these in my head too, so I kind of know how it works on the brain. Once you've learned something, it's hard to unlearn it, but you almost have to unlearn it before you can relearn something else, because you're still trying to fit all these new things in with what you've learned over here and that you've espoused to be true. It's hard to let go, and you almost feel like a heretic by letting go of your old beliefs. And this is one of the greatest things or obstacles to overcome when you are learning all these truths, and especially what's laid out in the three angels' message.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the hardest things for people to overcome, is everything that they've learned, they have to unlearn. Now, you didn't have that problem. You basically just came to the church knowing really not nothing.
No, I didn't know.
And so
I didn't have any previous religions. So.
And so, I mean, what struck you as like the Adventist church? Obviously, you started going to it because I was, raised Adventist.
Actually, there was a woman, and we lived way out again in the middle of nowhere. It was Wero Road.
Where?
Wero. And I had Levi, my middle son. He had ear infections all the time, and so this woman from the Adventist church, she brought some remedy books, and she asked me if I had some old nylons that I would wear, and I said, yep. And then she said, we need to get a garlic, and then she said it has to be fresh, and she took a little slice of it. She kind of made sure it was really fresh, and she kind of like chopped it a tiny bit, put it in there. We put a small rubber band on it. She put it in his ear, and then I was feeding him, so he just kind of fell asleep. So I would say that's when I fell in love with, I was intrigued because of the home remedies. And then after that, it was the diet, because I struggled with the weight. And then after that, it was Ellen G. White's books, Counsels on Food and Diet. I've read that quite a bit. And then I started reading the Bible. But yeah, that's what I liked the most, was Ellen G. White and the health message. So
interesting. Heaven Soon says, great controversy, page 588. God's triumph of God's love, page 513. Watchman says, the Holy Spirit is behind keeping the Bible intact as well as it is. It seems like a floating, living word. And that's true. You know, it's the anvil, people have said, that have worn out many hammers.
You know, I believe men retain everything from the Bible. It's almost like they were born to be teachers to their family.
Yeah, God has given mankind that privilege to be the priest. Well, you know, and it's in typology too. We spoke a little bit of that last week.
Women grasp it too. I'm just saying that it takes me a while.
Well, women can always do where man is deficient. You know, they can always pick up where man is deficient and do it just as well as a man. But man was ordained to do such things, and just like a woman is ordained to do certain things too. You know, women are born nurturers. You know, and so they what did you just tell me? The quote, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, a lot of times our responsibilities are not fully realized, you know, that are given to us. You know, the weight of our responsibilities that God has given us is not fully realized. But, you know, man and woman have both been given great
the talents. Their talents.
Great tasks or talents or I'm looking for a better word than that, and I just can't find it. But yeah, aside from that, but yeah. So modern evangelicals, I would say, would be the false prophets. You know, the papacy is the dragon. Well, the dragon is the devil himself, right? Because we're told that in Revelation. But the devil speaks directly to the papacy. The papacy is speaking directly to America. America is the beast power that speaks like a dragon, that speaks like Satan. And so how does Satan speak? He speaks through control, through force, through coercion. You know, God is the exact opposite of that. God is a God of choice and respect. And we don't see that in this country anymore. We're starting to see that dragon come out. And the wound of the false of the papacy is just about fully healed to the point where but you know, we're also told that it's not the papacy that's going to push the Sunday law through, but apostate Christianity. I mean, Protestants, apostate Protestantism.
You know, I was watching a documentary on the burial of Pope. Was it Paul?
John Paul?
Yeah, John Paul. And it showed all the presidents that were there. I mean, they were all there. And they gave him such homage. I mean, they revered this man.
Such pomp.
Yeah. And, you know, it had Trump and it had Clinton's and trying to think who else. Obama's and just everyone was there. It's really something else. The whole world wonders after the beast, Carrie.
It does indeed. The whole world wonders after the beast, and that's the thing, you know. And this beast, the final beast is America. Revelation 13 there. You know, the two horns like a lamb would speak as a dragon. And so the whole world wonders after the papacy. The whole world wonders after the beast, the final beast power, which is America as well. And America, all eyes are on America. Let's be real here. Watchman says, I don't know how well America is going to stand, and especially in the Sunday law. I see civil unrest coming. Mm-hmm. Watchman, while we need to prepare, we also need to know, Heaven Soon says, what we are preparing for and what we will face. But yes, being prepared by studying, praying, and repentance is so essential. Tim Grady says, did anyone see the big dust storms around the world this week? Yes, I did.
Oh, boy.
And actually, you know, last Trumpet Blast can attest to that because he lives in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And so I called him up, and he says, yes, indeedy, we had some dust storms, and they were something else. Now, I guess Chicago has been experiencing a lot of wind, and so has a lot of the areas in the Midwest.
Well, don't we have a
more than usual
volcano in Oregon?
Yeah,
That's
off the coast of Oregon there, 300 miles or something. And that gives about a 5-minute warning for a tsunami if that thing blows. Now, it's erupted in the past. Now, there's been eruptions, like if you can call them that. There's been seismic activities for many years, and it seems to kind of get more active at some times than others. And
So that ring of fire is active and alive. What about our volcano? I think this would ruin the light for the whole world. I think they said the dust would blacken out. They think up to several months, maybe years. So I don't know if anyone can live after this erupts in Yellowstone.
yeah, well, Yellowstone that's a subject in and of itself because I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. I mean, I guess if it erupts and that's that, right?
Yeah, better be right in your mind, huh?
But I don't know if that's how it's going to happen, and I'll tell you why. Because God gives so much warning. Like for example, that volcano off the coast of Oregon right now, there's like a
And
ton
Alaska.
of warning. Yeah, and there's one in Alaska too, and the Tongan volcano has erupted already.
Where
And
was that one at again? That one out by the Tonga Islands.
oh, that was Tongan. Yeah.
No,
Uh,
it was out a little bit. I forget the name of it. It was kind of funny.
Oh, that's the one I'm talking about. The Tonga something.
Honga Tonga.
Honga Tonga. I forget, but yeah, it was a typical name that you would
Make fun of. Like
well,
a cartoon, maybe.
maybe. Okay, so there's a cauldron. That's not the right word. Heaven soon. She just messed me up. What are those big volcanoes called? Not a cauldron. Caldera.
Okay. He's losing it big time.
Lisa does that to me constantly. She'll say a word and so it's like, and I can't think of the actual word.
I rename everything.
She does.
I rename people.
Okay, there's a caldera on the East Coast that is large as what's underneath the Yellowstone. People just don't know about it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, oh well, yeah. Tambora Reformation says Mount Tambora erupted in 1855 and caused massive drought for several years.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay. The final daughter of Babylon will be desolate forever. Thanks, Reformation. That's the one I meant. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Caldera.
Yeah,
well, that's what we have here in Yellowstone as well as the caldera.
And
now,
it's venting.
Well, and here's why I don't think it's going to erupt. And I could be totally wrong. I mean,
well, I thought all the Ring of Fire was together.
Well, the caldera is different.
Oh.
This Yellowstone volcano is different. God gives plenty of warning. Mm-hmm. Okay, God just doesn't, okay, so the Tongan went off, but nobody died. It was scary. It made this huge bang. There was a tidal wave, actually, that went all the way into the bay there in San Diego. Mm-hmm. And which was amazing because living in California on the West Coast, we had a lot of tsunami warnings, but I never actually saw one.
No, I haven't either. But there was those freak waves that was happening.
Yeah, well, and that where the pier was, but that was like under construction too.
No, I mean, there was just, my sister sent me this thing where there's the waves, would be lapping and also the different times of the tide going out and coming in. No, these would be all of a sudden a freak wave. That's what happens now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's these weird waves.
There's just freak waves coming out of there. Watch what says a black you guys said cauldron again. Stop that. That's caldera.
Caldera.
Mexico is a caldera, and Utah, Tim Grady says. So we got them all over the place.
We got them everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, when they begin to erupt, things are gonna get nasty. Maybe that is what's gonna happen right at the end. Never turn your back on the ocean, Reformation says. Mm-hmm. The Russians have a plan to do something to Yellowstone.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I guess if they hit it with a missile, that might do it. I don't know. But again, the reason why, let me get this.
They're just not far enough away not to be affected.
there's plenty of warning. God gives us tons of warning, right? There'll be small earthquakes and then the big earthquake. There'll be all these little rumblings, and Mount St. Helens, we knew about that for a long time.
Yeah.
And the people wouldn't leave because they didn't actually believe it would do anything. And that was a big eruption. Now, not a lot of people perished in that. I mean, I don't know, there was a dozen or so. It wasn't, but it was everybody who refused to leave. And I think even the cameraman.
Yeah, well, he was filming for National Geographic. He went up, him and his wife.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Well, and I think he perished.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how they found the camera that recorded the eruption, but yeah, it was there. It was definitely there. So there it is. The beast, the false prophet, and the dragon.
The biggest heresy of them all.
Well, the biggest heresy of them all is Sabbath and immortality of the soul.
Yeah.
And those are the two greatest lies that we're battling right now, because the immortality of the soul is a wicked burn forever, and that the soul doesn't die, that the soul is like an entity all by itself. But the fact of the matter is, and we've discussed this before, like at Sabbath school, several Sabbath school lessons ago, that a soul is a combination of breath and
character
and life.
And life. Oh, sorry.
Well,
you just take your character
with
you.
It's a body and breath. Okay, so we have our body, right? People think that the soul lives inside the body, but the body and the breath are the soul. You take that, you dismantle that, and it's no longer a soul. So the soul is a result of the body and the breath. Reformation says the natural disasters will become so bad that people will say this can only be the finger of God, and it's because of the desecration of the Sunday Sabbath, and it will lead to the Sunday loss. Mountains will not be found, it is coming, also in Revelation 16. See, here's the thing, guys. We're seeing all these tornadoes, 300 and some tornadoes in Kentucky, and multiple floods. The hurricane that went all the way up into Tennessee, the floods that came out of the mountains,
the fires, and
the mudslides,
Carolina,
the fires in Carolina, of course, the fires in California, the fires in Hawaii. We've seen now volcanoes erupting. We've seen earthquakes all over the world, and I'm just talking about like in our neck of the woods. If you guys go around the world, I mean, look at Palestine is in ruins because of war, and now India is in conflict, and now Russia's threatening us with nuclear power, and of course Iran, I think, has nuclear capabilities, and so does India. And so all these nuclear powers are sparring, if you will, and China as well.
Got North Korea.
North Korea was playing games there for a little while. I don't know what they're doing now, but so Reformation said the issue of immortality of the soul is about spiritualism and the dead return to second the opinion that these events are because of not obeying the Sabbath commandment. Yeah, so that will happen. So there's going to be these maybe Satan himself will impersonate Christ and say it was because of the violation of the Sabbath, i.e. Sunday. And that will reinforce the Sunday law, right? And the order or the decree that goes forth.
I wanted to say something very weird to you guys.
Say it, Lisa.
It's weird. It's really weird. And it's just a thought. But I actually saw something with my own eyes. So, it would be the field out here. We're on this state land. There was this huge, almost like these illuminating lights that Carrie's got right in front of me, but in a big, giant, circular, it was a weird illuminating type of disc. And it was kind of having a hard time going into the ground, and it was like, it was huge. It looked like the moon, and it was like, and then it stopped, and then it looked like it was quivering a little bit, and then it went down, and then it was over 3/4 of the way, and then all of a sudden, then it was just gone. And Carrie saw something too. He says, I don't know what that was. I
It
have
was
no idea.
exactly what you're describing, but it had a halo around it.
Yeah, well, this.
It was
this
exactly
didn't
like
for
a
me.
gigantic moon. It was larger than the moon, and it had this halo of light around it. And it just went quickly, whoosh, right behind the hill.
Well, his went quickly behind the hill. Mine went into the mountain, and it was like even like sawing its way or like quivering or I don't know what you call it, gyrating or whatever. And I sat there, and it was like really early in the morning. I had my eyes open. I went to the restroom, and we don't have no curtains because we're in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, "Oh, what is that?" And then I sat there. I tried to get Carrie up, but he was so exhausted he wouldn't get up. But I'm wondering, you know how like you're in Egypt and those mirrors, they reflected the light into the pyramids and stuff. I was wondering if Satan's going to impersonate himself using these discs all around, because we're not the only ones that have seen these discs. I don't think they're big giant UFO moons. I think that they could be reflecting or going to be reflecting, helping him deceive people. I don't know.
You're kind of talking almost
Conspiracy.
Project Bluebeam type stuff.
No.
That's what it sounds. You don't know what Project Bluebeam is.
No.
Yeah, so don't disagree with me.
Oh.
Okay.
I thought that was that thing that was causing the fires.
No, Project Bluebeam is infrastructure that's been placed in
strategically.
Yeah, but in outer space.
Oh.
Like in orbit, right? And what it does is it's like a movie projector. And when the conditions are right, fog or chemicals been released or whatever, they can project apparitions in the sky. Project Bluebeam.
Oh, I see.
So this is what you're talking about. This is what you're So like they can fake some kind of event in the sky.
Imaging.
With imaging. And this, it's not really a conspiracy theory. I mean, it is. See, okay. So a conspiracy is nothing more than a group of people conspiring to do something, right?
Yeah.
It could be a conspiracy of anything, right? Like if you and I conspired to go to Mount Ellis to talk the principal into having us or giving us that one house for a podcast studio, we would be conspiring. You could say, it's not always in like a negative connotation, but it oftentimes is. So like people use the word conspiracy and instantly, oh, it's a conspiracy, so it must be false. Well, no, that's not true at all. Conspiracy is just a group of people conspiring to bring about something.
Well, I had another question too. I wanted to ask everybody, well, I don't know. So corny question, but I wanted to ask everyone where they thought Satan was when he thought he was going to perish in the flood. Where do you think he was?
Good question. Well,
he thought he was going to die.
Well, because it does say in Patriarchs and Prophets that he thought he was going to die.
So
he thought he was going to perish.
So these UFO thingies, do you think he was in there hovering? I mean, because I guess the sky just opened up and just rained and rained and rained. I don't know.
Heaven Soothe says, always call upon God immediately when Satan tries to play. Reformation says Satan was made perfect and spent time directly with God. The idea that he is a little red pitchfork-carrying demon gives us a wrong idea. He can appear as an angel of light.
And he could snatch that Bible from your hand and recite it to you.
Reformation said he was trapped here. And in the power of the name of Jesus, Watchman says. So when we're seeing these UFOs, maybe we should try, I haven't tried that yet. Now, here's something interesting, you guys.
I don't think it, I think it was supernatural, but I think it wasn't directed at me. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to wait for Lisa to come out, and go into the other room at 2:00 in the morning. I think they were like setting something up. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I gotcha. Yeah, so Watchman says HARP is a weather manipulation. Project Bluebeam is a projector, and MK Ultra is mind control. Yeah, the LSD, stuff. The MK Ultra was like an experiment with LSD. Like the Rolling Stones. Okay. And actually, Ted Kaczynski was either Project Bluebird or it was the MK Ultra that he was in on.
Oh, wasn't Manson on there too?
Manson was part of the MK Ultra.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep. But I was going to say something. Oh, what was I going to say?
I have no idea.
It was super important too. But I'll think of it in a second. But these, I've often said that I think Satan's going to impersonate the second coming of Christ using a UFO. I really do, because that would tie into everything. I mean, we've seen all these activities in the skies.
Yeah.
Certainly people have seen these things. I know a lot of Adventists that are trustworthy that have seen them just like we have. And, calling out in the name of Jesus. Now, Watchman mentioned calling out in the name of Jesus when we see these things. Now, you guys have heard of these alien abductions, right? You know, how people get abducted with the aliens and stuff. And these, by all accounts, are real accounts. They even take lie detector tests, and they pass the lie detector tests.
Like those guys from Arizona.
The movie Fire in the Sky.
That's the ones from Arizona.
Okay, yeah, the loggers. That was the loggers. And then there was the one, the guys on the lake. I don't know if those are the same or they're different. You know, there's multitude. Different. You know, the people who have been lost and they come back and they have like scars on them, and you know, apparently.
I thought I got abducted. I had this pain in my neck. I made Carrie look. Is there an incision back there? You never know.
So, anyways, these people. Well, there's this pastor that has contacted many people who have claimed to have been abducted. And it's interesting that abduction and sleep paralysis, I think we talked about this a little bit before, kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, and the psychiatrists talk to people and they find out they've been abducted.
Yeah. Well, but this pastor was talking to him, and all those who cried out in the name of Jesus were spared, and it ended immediately. The abduction process immediately ended.
We need to do that.
Well, I mean, I've never been abducted.
How do you know?
But if I'm, I'd have some repressed memory somewhere, I think.
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe you were abducted.
So many times.
You got any repressed memories, Lisa?
Yeah.
Anyways, so that's just kind of interesting. But they, the demons are masquerading as aliens, and so there's actually a woman, Watchman says, that saw one of these things in the sky, and it responded to her words. It changed its lighting. Yeah, I saw that. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Reformation said these encounters of the third kind are kind of the same with people that have near-death experiences and claim to have seen heaven and met with dead loved ones. Well, I mean, I have seen personally a UFO, and it's actually, you can YouTube it. I see a lot of them on YouTube. They're these like, shiny spheres. Lisa was with me. The kids were with me. There was other people on the road that stopped and saw it too. It was just kind of just sitting there, just hovering and looking at everybody. Now, what are these things? And I'm kind of 50-50 on it. There was Bob Lazar.
I think they're just vehicles.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what I think. They're vehicles. They're obviously vehicles. They're real. I guarantee you they're real.
That's how 1/3 of the angels came to heaven. Came to earth.
It's possible.
Sorry, from heaven.
Yeah, it's possible because these are sentient beings. I know they're spirits. They dwell in a different realm, but they're very real. They can interact in a very real way with us. Mm-hmm. I mean, angels can, right? Angels can even pose as humans. So they can even come to us with the appearance of people and interact with us and touch and feel and everything that we do, right? But then they're able to, and Jesus himself was walking through walls, and he would appear and disappear, and so he was able to live in these other realms, yet he was a man, which is very interesting. I mean, so this is something we don't understand. Bart says near death is just hallucinations that occur when brain is deceived of oxygen, no supernatural. Yeah, that's true. So the experience with the UFO is very different than the near-death experience, I believe, because I've experienced the UFO things. Lisa saw them her whole life. She tried to convince me of them. I was a skeptic, and then I saw one. And then I've seen some weird things in the sky since, like that moon going over the hill. She saw one too. And so not sure what these things are. And I've often thought, well, why do they always have to be unholy angels?
I don't know.
Why do they always have to be unholy
That's
angels?
what you were fighting or struggling with that.
Yeah. I mean, this thing, it was me and my friend. We were talking on the phone. We were talking about God. And so, and we get into these discussions about God, and then I was looking out my window, and then I saw it. And then I immediately told him, whoa, you won't believe what I just saw. And I was telling him on the phone, that I just saw this thing. And, it was larger than the moon. Shit, it was bright, just a bright
Really
light.
illuminating.
Yes, and it had a halo around that. Mm-hmm. So, and that might have just been the atmosphere that, the light was refracting off of. But, here's the thing. You listen to Bob Lazar. Now, here's something. Here's some extracurricular stuff. And Watchmen, I'm surprised you haven't put this link in there yet. From Bob Lazar and Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan podcast. Watch that, guys, and tell me what you guys think. Now, he's not a Christian. He's just an individual that used to work on these things, apparently, in like Area 6 or something. And so he was a propulsion expert, and so he was called to unpack what was going on. I guess he made this car that, made the headlines, and somebody contacted him and said, hey, we've got something you might be interested in. He went through all the clearance checks and everything else, top secret. But his story was told back in the 60s, and it still checks out to this day. Like, a lot of people have scrutinized his story, and it as near as they can tell, he's telling the truth. And he hasn't changed any of his story since then. But he talks, and he even has like video footage, like super old video footage of these things flying around in the sky. But he talks about them being like dug up in archaeological digs. And this is where the 50-50 pops in on me, because I'm like going, well, you read the text, like, what's the name of that book? Secrets of the Ancients? No.
Lost something.
Secrets of the Lost Races. Thank you, Lisa. Secrets of the Lost Races. It's an Adventist man who wrote this book. Well, but it was talking about these tablets that had been deciphered. Bart says deceptions of the devil, Carrie. So he disagrees that they could be in any way angels or holy beings.
Oh, yeah, but Highway 51 area
51
area. They were experimenting with these things, so they were driving them, things like that.
Well, yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying. So, if these things were dug up out of archaeological digs, and there was a lot of interest in the South Pole there for a long time, makes me wonder why these things were down there. Now, of course, there's been some talk like, where does the devil reside? Mm-hmm. The old nursery rhymes say that Santa Claus is in the North Pole.
North.
Now, why would he say the North Pole if they're interested in the South Pole? It's interesting. The South Pole's got all the interest generated. The North Pole doesn't have any interested.
Admiral Byrd was flying, and that's where he saw him.
Yeah, yeah. According to the story, huh? And so
and his son was in his 20s, and he was in the Navy, ships. They saw him under the water, and that's what he was looking to do. So I don't know.
But going back to the book, Secrets of the Lost Races, these things could have been the flying vimanas that are spoken of in ancient texts. These flying vimanas had weapons. They called the Agano weapon, and they had the power of the sun that they would go and destroy whole cities.
Oh, I saw that. And then it would leave those like green diamonds, like diamond.
Well, the vitrified sands.
Sands, yeah.
And so you can go to these areas that the book mentions, and there's vitrified sands, like some kind of nuclear explosion had taken place. And so it lends a lot of credence to the stories of these ancient flying machines. And there's some who theorize that these could be the flying vimanas. Now, where did the flying vimanas come from? Man was very smart. Mm-hmm. Man was highly intelligent.
They were in the caves, Carrie. Everyone nowadays thinks that people back then were not very smart. Right.
And see this, yeah. But creationists don't believe that. Reformation says there is so much archaeological evidence of advanced technology all over the world. And see, there's
Cell phones.
out of place artifacts. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that they found that really look like there's technology.
Yeah.
Now, the way Bob Lazar describes these things, they're very basic. They're very basic machines. But the reactor was very sophisticated. And how they made it, nobody really knows. It was from an element that technically we hadn't invented yet, but then later we did. You know, at the time that he claimed that this element existed in these things, we didn't have that element. But then the Russians at some point were able to create this element. And this element was the fuel that fueled these reactors. And these reactors made anti-gravity, which basically, according to him, was the reason why these flying machines were able to really kind of go real fast. I mean, because, you know, let's think about it. If there was no gravitational forces involved in here, you turn into soup the way these things move. And they do. They move very fast, and they move very abrupt. But he says you can put a glass of water in these things, and it doesn't even make ripples in it when they're flying, because of they have their own gravitational field. And not only that, but the gravitational field will create like this.
I wonder if they go into different dimensions.
It cloaks. Well, it can. Mm-hmm. It can, because and gravity is just something that we don't even really understand what it is. You know, but it's a force that pulls, you know, and the bigger the body, the more the gravity. Mm-hmm. Earth has its own gravity, and so do all the other planets. And even things like this have a certain amount of gravity. I mean, this is a very small object, but, you know, if you had an instrument that could measure it, there would be an attraction to that object. And so, I don't know. There's a lot of speculation on what these things are. So that's what I'm saying. 50-50 archaeological find. The other 50% is that these crafts were crafts that Satan himself flew around in, and his demons, because they're sentient beings and they have their own technology. And that's kind of how I think about it.
And they're quarantined to this earth now until they're judged, like we are. And so they can't fly out and fly back to heaven or fly elsewhere. So they're quarantined. Mm-hmm. That's why so Satan, 1/3 of the angels is here. Maybe some of their vehicles are here. I mean, it's something to think about.
Yeah, and check it out. The book by Velikovsky talks about a lot of these, you know, natural disasters and events that took place. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and he was very biblically inclined as well.
Machu Picchu, the walls and all that stuff. They said this creature had a man's body. Said that he had this bull face, this golden mask with these horns, and they said, well, how come you don't take that off? And he said, I'd scare you. I'm not from this earth. That's what he said.
Yeah, he was a demon.
He was a demon. And then they have a UFO pictograph. I can never say that word. Pictographs. You're trying to put the R in it. Oh, okay. Pictograph. Picto. Anyways, there's a UFO on there. I mean, so what does that mean? I mean, everyone's trying to think that, I mean, even the square of these huge tons and tons of rock was there, cut perfectly. I mean, just to think that maybe something supernatural.
Well, and those same structures are found all over the world. That same type of stone construction.
Yeah, wasn't there one in
Montana?
No, was there?
There's one here in Montana. Yeah, there's a megalith. We're gonna visit it soon.
Oh, that wall. No, I was talking about the pyramids. I think there was one in Japan, wasn't there?
Oh, China. There's lots of them in China.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't see them until you see them, and then once you see them, you can't unsee them. Yeah, they're big too. There's a bunch of them out there.
But no one ever talks about those.
Well, no, they're kind of hidden because that, you know, yeah, there's an agenda that the scientists are trying to push. And that agenda goes like this, you know, that we came from apes, and just like you were saying, you know, and we didn't have any technology, and then we're getting smarter as we get, you know, and now we're in this great age of enlightenment, and they're, you know, they're trying to say that, you know, God don't exist, and all of these things. Reformation talks about the helicopter hieroglyphs in Egypt.
Yes.
Many of us have seen that. Yeah, there's a helicopter and there's something that looks like a submarine. So, I mean, in this galaxy, Heaven Soon says there's gravity. There's gravity. Is there gravity outside of this galaxy?
Wow.
That's a interesting subject to ponder on. Okay. All right. And do we, heaven's going to be such a wonderful place, because I just think of all the different, God's going to give us the wisdom and the knowledge of all of these things. And I can just picture us. I don't know. I like the idea of building a spacecraft and traveling the stars, and visiting other planets and going places. I mean, that seems like a lot of fun to me. Yeah. So there were demons controlling people in Jesus' time. He had to cast them out. I believe they've infiltrated deep into our controlling systems. Well, look, they're if you listen to Ron Wyatt's stuff, they had found a wire near the Ark site that looks like fiber optics, Heaven Soon says. Also rumors of large find of the Great Pyramid of Giza, some sort of generating system. Yeah.
Yes. Huh.
That was recent. There's these big pillars of some sort that are underneath the pyramids, and probably like humongous grounding rods. When you come to a point like that, the point actually, there's electricity in the air, and I think Tesla was proving this. And that's why, who was the guy that flew the kite? Benjamin Franklin. Was that Benjamin Franklin? Or did I get that wrong?
I thought Benjamin Franklin is on our currency.
Who flew the kite?
Let me see.
Okay, find out who flew the kite.
Okay.
Bart says they don't need vehicles. Man does. Everything man made before the flood was evil. That's why God destroyed it. Cain made cities, man made. Adam and God clan lived in tents and in nature as God intended. Tim Grady says, I would like to go with you on Hitcher Guide to the Galaxy. Let's do it, Tim. Let's do it, man. It's
far out there.
Let's do it. Yeah. When we get to heaven, I'm going to take you up on that. Heaven Soon says, when White saw the vision of the Enoch in the early writings, there was a tree on each planet, but no one ate of it. But if someone did, that planet would fall. Satan's angels still tempt, even on the other worlds.
You were right. Benjamin Franklin flew a kite with a key attached in a thunderstorm in 1752. The key drew electricity from the storm, proving the lightning was a form of electricity.
Okay, well, he used a key. I heard some people say that it was a needle. It was a very small needle. And there's a reason why it has to be a very pointed needle. And the pyramids would come to a point. This is physics, right? This is stuff that we know about. I'm not just making this up. But there's electricity in the air. It's everywhere. And if you have a proper ground and you put something very high and very sharp into the air, high up, you can extract a tremendous amount of power from the atmosphere. And so I think that's maybe what the pyramids were doing. And it was theoretical that the tops, even the very peaks, were gold. Of course, that got looted. But, and gold, of course, is one of the best conductors of electricity there is. Actually, silver is a little bit better, but it tarnishes. So yeah, there you go. There's your little lesson on that sort of stuff. But if you fly a kite, you can get up there in the atmosphere where all that electricity is. Well, Ben Franklin, Bart says, you can get up there where all of that is, where all of that energy is. Of course, we all know about lightning and things like that. Image running 6 days without stopping and no food. Reformation says Tesla experiment with wireless electric and theorized pyramids and obelisks were part of that system. I've actually seen some of that wireless operation being experimented on by YouTubers.
Like the Philadelphia ship?
No. So the wireless transmission was actually quite simple, and they used the earth as a ground to transmit the electricity. And so the way it works is they'll have a little tower, and wirelessly they can transmit it like a radio wave.
Oh, I see.
And, I mean, we know about radio waves, right? Well, in theory, you can pick up a radio wave, and that is power that you're picking up, and that's going into the antenna, and you can actually generate enough power from strong enough radio waves to charge your phone and to light a light and to do different things. I mean, they've done these experiments before in school and things like that, you know. So that's real power coming across the radio wave. So that's all Tesla was doing, and he was using that technology to transmit electricity long ways. And this is really cool because what you could do is you could take and transmit that electricity, and you could actually power things like an airplane without batteries, without anything. And so this thing is essentially an electric plane with no batteries. I mean, that's the thing that always trumps the electric plane is the batteries. But they didn't like it because it would be unregulated. And if you can't regulate it, you can't charge people for it. So the people who wanted to make the money had to make it all wire. Mm-hmm. And that's the only way that you can, effectively charge people for it and measure how much they're using, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But I actually watched this little boat drive around on a lake with no batteries, no nothing, using the same technology that Tesla was talking about. Mm-hmm. And so maybe with these pyramids, these flying machines were, because electric engines are kind of simple. And if you take the 666 formula, now here's something that you guys may or may not know, but 666 is, especially the 369, which is another derivative of 666, is the formula for electric motors. Mm-hmm. Tesla was into all this stuff. He's the one that cracked the code. But he took that old pagan numbers, mm-hmm. which Satan just hijacked the technology that God had already had, mm-hmm. and really just kind of put it into all that. Reformation says there are natural ley lines across the globe that buzz, hum, and it's theorized that they were a part of an ancient grid. Yeah. So, I mean, ancient man, we don't give them enough credit. And I think that science has got it all wrong, especially some of this newer science that says, that we were just apes and just stupid people running around. Obviously there's giants, there's plenty of, if you guys look at the Prophecy Montana Facebook, I post a lot of the Lost World Museum stuff there, and Bart says there's no evolving, there's adapting, gaining, or losing knowledge. Yeah. And I think we've lost a lot of knowledge over the years. What about the Library of Alexandria that was destroyed, in the wars? I mean, there was just tons of stuff, and there's probably a lot of occultic stuff in there that people would love to get their hands on now. I think God intervenes to slow people down, to chill them out, because we get to the point where we're doing stuff that's just absolutely heinous, like what's going on right now with the cloning of animals and the amalgamation of man and beast. Now, Ellen White said that that's why the flood actually happened, was because of the amalgamation of man and beast. We hear about mermaids, things like that. Well, some have theorized that was real. They took man and fish. And what about Dagon? He was a fish god.
What about the pig? They said something about that too.
Yeah, somebody said that the pig was actually a man and a dog amalgamated. But
don't they put human DNA in the tomatoes now?
Yeah, they do. Well, pig DNA I know of for a fact in tomatoes, and they've spliced a man with the cow, man with pigs, man with you name it. And there's this one growth hormone that they love to use because it makes gigantic cows and gigantic pigs, and they can slaughter them and then feed them to people. It's kind of gross. Maybe that's why we're told not to eat meat in the last days.
Maybe.
Just saying, back on that subject again. Don't want to beat it like a dead horse. But there's a lot of reasons to quit the meat.
Today I was kind of shocked because our neighbor, we saw him when we were on our way out to go to work, which we didn't end up going to work, and he says, my friend just gave me a hindquarters of a deer. And I said, really? And I told Carrie, I said, it's not hunting season. Maybe people are just hunting out here. We have deer everywhere. And anyways, Carrie says, no, some people, they hunt and they throw it in the freezer, freeze it like that. That would just be
because I've done that, like back in the old days, back when I was like super carnivore.
I know, but why wouldn't you package it up?
Because it's laziness. You just quarter it is what you do.
Oh.
You quarter it and you wrap it and you just throw it in the freezer. It's easy. And then when you need it, you just pull it out and you just basically just, butcher it as you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thaw it out. And
never saw that. I do see the frozen creatures in the back of the people's vehicles. They'll have like a elk and a moose or deer, and they're frozen in the back of the trucks because it's fall.
Legs are sticking up.
Yeah, or the horns or the
They
head.
drive around with them, seems like for a week to show off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of macabre. Dinos are either 2 or 3 different species. They were man's experiments and a result of, you guys ever listen to
they
Ken?
never brought those on the Noah's Ark, huh? Not even
Well,
in egg
no,
form.
now, wait a minute. I don't know. Here's, dinosaur just means terrible lizard. That's the definition of that word. There was never such a word. I mean, they used the word dragon back in the day. I think that was the ancient word for.
But wasn't that a real dragon? Because there is real dragons.
Well,
that used to be.
So you ever listen to Ken Hovind? How many of you guys out there listen to Ken Hovind?
I don't listen to any of that. Mike Tyson and what's that other guy that's got that program? He's like, it's got Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan?
That's it.
Lisa, Ken Hovind.
I don't know any of these people.
He's a creationist.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a creationist, and he talks about why creation is what we should be believing in. And he went deep into the dragons, and it was really cool because he was talking about all of the places that dinosaurs, the name we use, terrible dragon, was used in modern day history. And so when you're looking at like in China, there was dragons. In the Netherlands, there was dragons. The legend of Beowulf. There was, he tore the arm off and the dragon died. It bled to death. There was one in Daniel. Of course, this was in one of the apocryphers. Well, yeah, they are, but there's just so many of them. And then they have like the Peruvian stones with the dinosaurs on them and stuff.
Hey, we were looking at a book one time. Got it for my older son at the Goodwill, and it was a Time Life book that talked about they were making a train passage through the mountains, and when they were drilling through, this thing gasped for air and then fell down dead.
Yeah, it was a Time Life book.
It was a pterodactyl or something.
Well, supposedly, okay, so...
And then they have a couple flying around in Arizona, they said.
You got to watch that thing from Ken Hovind, seriously. It is so cool. It talks about pterodactyls, but they didn't call them pterodactyls. They called them something else. And this guy went to Peru in 1855 or something like that, down in South America somewhere. Anyways, he saw an area where they had a ton of these bones of these birds, like pterodactyl birds. But they said that every year there was a migration of these other birds. Well, no, there was a migration of the pterodactyls that would fly through this one area, and this other bird would catch and eat and kill those birds in that one spot.
Wow.
And Ken Hovind was bringing all these things up, and this was documented by like an explorer, like a early, not early because 1855 is not that early, but
something bigger than a pterodactyl.
Something bigger than a pterodactyl was.
What would it be?
Some terrible bird, some winged creature that didn't have feathers.
Oh, it didn't have feathers.
And there's actually painting. There's petroglyphs or petroglyphs.
I got you messed up.
Pictographs. There's pictographs of people writing on the backs of pterodactyls.
Right, I saw that.
Yeah.
But now there's another featherless fat bird running around out there.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, that eats these pterodactyls.
Well, I was watching this. I don't know if they're real. I forget the name of it, but they were saying that in the Congo that there was a huge spider. It was huge.
Oh, well, everything was bigger.
Like it ate people.
Yeah,
Like
well,
it would wind you up and make a meal out of you.
yeah,
Out of a human, an adult male.
that's actually that because I'm arachnophobic, and I would scream like a little girl.
Yeah, I
Like,
just killed a big black widow.
yeah, that was kind of gross.
It was. But there's all kinds of things running around. And then they said they saw this. The military men were somewhere down south, and it was wartime, and they saw this ripple, and they thought it was a submarine or something. And they realized it was this humongous anaconda type snake, and it came up on the land and it grabbed a cow and took it into the water.
Still some creatures swimming around out there that are pretty.
The men were frightened. But now we're just freaking everyone out.
Yeah, well, we're way off topic, but and I think we're just about at the end of this live stream too. But
we never know what's out there.
well, I know, and that's it. Okay, so so Reformation's got to go. So yeah, so we're gonna wrap this up, and I'm gonna catch a few of these little comments that you guys have been saying here. There's okay, so Watchman talks about the vegetables getting mRNA, which I think is insanity. But remember that the animals that eat them get the biomagnification from it too as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, and they can't carry the whole thing. And the EnviroPig was predicted in the 66-17, consuming swine's flesh with the abomination and the mouse. The EnviroPig inserts mouse genes and E. coli elements, the abomination manure.
Wow.
Interesting, because I just thought it was like a broth of abominable things, and including swine's flesh. University of Delaware, Heaven Soon says, was experimenting with the DNA of animals and human mix in the 1980s. Can't imagine how much further they are into it now. Reformation says, look at the archaeological records. Dinosaurs existed long after the flood. I agree with that too. Certain dinosaurs probably. Well, and there's even like a T-Rex.
There's
here.
a Nessie.
Well, yeah, I mean, there very possibly could have been an actual, that could have been like a publicity stunt too, but I mean, it could have been actual. Who knows? It says that there was actually a lot fewer dinos than most think. A lot of the dinos are actually just the original size look of animals like rhinos, etc. And I think maybe rhinos maybe shared DNA with like Triceratops or something like that, much like what they've proven the modern elephants share the DNA with like the mammoths and things like that. They're just a subspecies, much like, lions and tigers and all of those have common ancestral roots, like the dog as well. All the dogs come from a wolf, we say. And so they have all these common ancestral roots that all tie back into there. That's why I think the Bible clears us of what we might eat if we were held accountable for all the different things they're doing to the food, and no one would make it. It's not what goes in the man's mouth that defiles him, and what comes out of it. Well, that's a different subject, Watchman. We've already talked about that, but we'll give you the last word on that for now because we're running out of time. And Heaven Soon says, the joy of seeing things we've never seen before once we get to heaven is very appealing. There's going to be wonders that will defy man's comprehension of right now. Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, neither has it entered into the hearts of man what God has prepared for those who love him. And, but has been revealed through the spirit of those, of those that has been given. So something like that. I kind of paraphrase the last part of that verse, but you guys get the idea. We can have an imagination, right? And God has given us imagination. He's given us a little bit of insight too, as far as what heaven would be like. It's going to be a fantastic place. It's going to be a place much like Earth, but without the curse. Imagine that.
Oh yeah.
A forest with no stickers, ground that's smooth and soft, and everything that you step on, everything you touch is pleasing to the touch, pleasing to the eye. There's nothing that's going to bite, sting, or hurt or kill in all my holy mountains, saith the Lord of hosts. I kind of added a few of those words on there, but you guys get the idea. But thanks for watching, folks, and guys hung in here for 2 whole hours this time. Thank you very much, and it's always a joy. I almost don't want to go, but we eventually have to. So thanks for all your guys' wonderful comments and your guys' participation. You guys are the best part of Prophecy Montana. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you guys haven't already. Catch us every Wednesday at 7 o'clock for our live, and every Saturday, 9 o'clock Mountain Time, a.m. for our Sabbath School podcast in the morning, and for the prophecy updates as well. Catch them all. So thank you so much. We'll see you guys soon. God bless each and every